From the combined crew of blindandroidusers.com and accessibleandroid.com, it's time for your favorite Android podcast. Kick back now and enjoy another fine episode from these fanboys and gals as they navigate Android from a blindness perspective. And now, here's your crew.
Hello and welcome to episode 158 of the Blind Android Users Podcast. I'm Ed Green and I'm joined today by my co-hosts Warren Carr, Austin Pinto, John Dyer and Sally Kunders, and we are coming to you on Saturday the 16th of December 2023. We, the co-hosts, though, are not the main point of this episode, folks. This is our 3-year anniversary. Yes, since Warren and Austin kicked this off in December 2020, we are now at 3, and I'm delighted to say we have quite a lot of listeners joining us on this episode. You know, we like to do this as a significant anniversary, so it's great that so many of you have been able to come. What we're going to do essentially is we're just going to introduce each other, have a bit of a chat, and kick back, enjoy it. Hopefully you've grabbed your favourite drink and comestibles, and even if you're listening on demand, hopefully you're doing that as well. So I am going to go down the list of folks just as I see them on my screen. No co-hosts prioritized particularly, but we'll just go in the order. And if you say who you are, where you're from, even if you're very familiar, maybe what Android device you are currently preferring as your primary. And if you want to, and if you are celebrating with us, what is your tipple of choice? So let's have a look who we have first of all. Well, it is actually a co-host. It's Warren. Warren, where are you coming to us from and what are you doing?
Hey guys, coming to you guys from the state of Washington, and I'm hiding my head indoors today, of course, during the anniversary. So glad to be here.
And what's your preferred phone of choice right now? What's your go-to in your suite of many phones?
At the moment, of course, every one of you guys know that I'm a Pixel guy, so I got the Pixel 8 Pro running, and that's my main driver.
And am I right in saying it's probably too early for you to be drinking right now? Not that you drink alcohol anyway.
Oh gosh, I tell you what, my wife had to go to Ohio today, and so she kind of got her alarm set for 2:30, and I had stayed up late working on something, and my eyes, it's like I got sand in my eyes because I'm so sleepy. So not quite up to par, but I'm here to party. And I should have gotten some tea or something, maybe borrow some beer from Ed, of course, but I didn't do that. So I'm all dry.
Yeah, I do indeed have a beer. Next is Austin. Austin, what's going on?
So I'm from Mumbai, India, and I'm back from a vacation. So I'm having the thing that is called Caju Feni. So Caju Feni is a Goan drink. It's made out of the caju fruit. It's a juice of caju fruit, which is fermented, and it's really strong and nice strong smell. It's good for cold. If you have a flu or something, you can have that. So that is on the table today, and I and Warren co-founded this episode, and we cannot believe it has been 3 years since we have started this. Sometimes I just think it has been like not even 3 years or something, but then I think, oh, it's 3 years, and in the 3 years, we are very happy to say we have not missed a single episode in the week. So every week we are bringing in new episodes.
Yeah, we are. And what's your current preferred phone of choice?
My current phone is the Pixel 7a, but I'll be upgrading to Samsung shortly, or the Pixel 8a. We'll see what comes next.
Nice. Next we have Ava. Hi, Ava.
I'm Eva, and first of all, I'd like to thank you for doing this podcast every week and for organizing the mailing list. It's been really helpful for me in the past, and I'm sure it will be in the future. And I'm from Germany. I don't know if I've mentioned it. I'm a bit excited because I had to use my headphone because my speaker would speak very quietly when I went on this session here. But anyway, I'm currently on a Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, and I'm really enjoying it. Enjoying listening to the radio, listening to podcasts, everything. And I'm still on Android 13. Haven't got the upgrade yet. It hasn't been offered to me. Yeah, and that's it. I don't know if I can stay long because I have to have some dinner in an hour's time or so. It's after 6 p.m. here in Germany. So that's it from me.
Great. I have the A33 5G. That's my work phone, so I like that phone too. It's good phone. Next, we have Mithat. Mithat, how are you?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yep.
Okay, so my name is Mithat Fezic from Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I know already what question is coming up next. So my current phone is Galaxy A22 5G from company Samsung. I'm really enjoying it for now. As for the future, I don't know if I'm going to upgrade to some new what's the name? Yeah, smartphone or from either iOS or Android. But if I do get it, but don't take me up for it, or that is for the word. So if I get it, I'll give you a heads up by voice message on WhatsApp group. That is Accessible Android's WhatsApp group. So that will be my heads up for you all of you guys.
Great stuff and welcome. John Boy, it's you now. How are you?
I'm good. I'm John Dyer. I'm joining from the state of Virginia. My current phone is the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and it's a fantastic device. And I'm drinking a delicious root beer.
Nice. Good to have you as ever. Linda, how are you?
I'm Linda Cocovizzo. That's Coco Vizzo because Jaws and everything else pronounces it terribly. But I am in Kansas City, Missouri, and I currently have a Pixel 6. I'm kind of looking around to decide what direction I want to go next. Kind of trying to wait for the OnePlus to come out to see it unboxed before I decide, but I don't know if I'm going to make it that long. And I'm currently having a Monster Energy drink.
Nice. Is it just me, or is Coco Vizzo sound like something you should be able to order in Starbucks?
It's pretty easy to spell. It's just COCCOVIZZO, and everybody thinks it's really complicated, but it's Italian and it's pretty easy to spell.
Yeah, a singable, orderable name by the sounds of it, I think. But
yeah,
that
even
I
thought of the Starbucks thing.
Yeah, the OnePlus 12 does sound like it should be a beast. Great that we've got you here. Next, we have Mike.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Dane. I'm located in the state of Oregon, along the Oregon coast. This place is very familiar to some of the folks that I've heard on the podcast. And so I'm the director for emergency communications for the city. My phone is I just upgraded to the Galaxy S23 Ultra. So I'll send it back to you, and I'll go back on mute because I'm monitoring emergency frequencies. So I'll be listening along. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
Before you go, Mike, sorry, this is Warren from the state of Washington. Are you in Lincoln City, Cannon Beach, or where are you at? We go to the Oregon coast every year. Which of those, in other words, I'll stop by to have lunch with you. That's what it is.
Well, Warren, you're more than invited. I'm in Depot Bay. I
Okay,
missed you. I missed you a couple. It's been a while. This is when it was ice free,
exactly.
and I was following you back. I was in the other room. I was setting up a mixer to do a live and a streaming performance, and
Oh,
so
neat.
I was in the other room with my crew, and we were setting up the system to be. I do a lot of portable work,
Oh,
both with the radio gear and also I do live sound reproduction. So I
nice.
missed you, but one of the workers came over and told me that you were in the other room, and I was at the point where I couldn't get away. So Gracie Seahag and Depot Bay, you're all of you are invited. If you're in the area,
Good.
just let one of the workers know. I've been at that place for 26 years. So,
Oh,
uh,
beautiful.
yeah.
It's so hard to
So,
know when to
anyway,
go there because it's always, rainy and chilly. You want to go to the beach, you get there and it's like 60 degrees, 50 something degrees. I hated it. And the kids love it anyway. So, yeah.
Nice. I know the Oregon
understood.
Coast a little bit.
Understood.
I spent a weekend in Florence once. So
Oh, that's nice.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and all you have to do is come up the coast up to Depot Bay. We're just north of, not just north, but we're north of Florence. But if you ever wind up down there, come up here. And
Great. Will do.
Neat.
yeah,
Neat. Thank you so
all
much,
right.
Mike.
Thank you.
Good. Good to have you, Mike. Next, it's our friend Miwash. Potato, how are you?
I'm fine.
Where are you coming to us from?
I'm from Poland, and I can't wait until summer to eat yummy peaches. And I want to grow my own peach tree, also. That's my dream, kinda. And I can't wait until Galaxy S24 series will be released because I'm really hyped for those AI features and stuff. I really want those, and I'll probably gonna upgrade because I am now using the A52s 5G. And at first I liked it a lot, but after a year, there are quite a lot of problems with it, including overheating and generally not good stuff.
Oh, well,
So yeah,
hopefully.
but
Yeah.
at least I have Android 14 already, which is good.
Good. But I'm not sure about what you mean by growing peaches, because peaches come from a can. They were put there by a man in a factory downtown, according to the President of the United States of
Yeah,
America, anyway.
I know, but we kind of do it another way, you know.
Excellent.
That's so beautiful, though, potato boy. And this is no summertime. I love my peaches, but you know what? The peach, I leave that for the summertime. I don't like canned ones. By the way, just for the record.
It's the presidents of the United States of America that gave them primacy, not me. It's their lyric. Next, we have Mohammed Amir.
Yes, hi. I'm from India, and yes, my name is Amir, and no, not the other person with a similar name. That's a different person. I promise you. And yeah, I am a student,
Welcome.
and
Are you near Austin, or are you a bit further away?
actually, no, Austin is quite far away from here. I'm all the way to the north. You know, I am in Kashmir. If I'm sure Austin would know.
Wow,
Yeah.
that
And
cold, nice valley.
yeah,
It's
I'm just waiting for
it's
for
the heaven
for
on heaven on
snowfall,
earth. Yeah.
quote unquote. Yeah, I mean. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here. Actually, it's my first time joining the Blind and Android podcast, and I have two Android devices. The main one is iQOO Z6, That's the one I'm using, and I also have a Samsung M34. It's the newly released. I think it was released in April or something. And yeah, both the phones I like, and they're actually low to mid range devices, and so I mean they still perform decently, and I like them. And for potato, I want to say we do have a bunch of peach trees here, and we can send you some. But for that, you have to wait for summer,
But
obviously.
can I ask you something? Are they hairy or not?
Um, Actually, they are kind of, yes. Their skin is.
What's your name again? Amin?
Potato?
No,
Yes,
no.
Amir. Amir is my name. Hi,
I mean,
Warren.
hey, so really, I want to talk about that phone that you have. I mean, you could talk about it later on, but this is the first time. I mean, I've seen it so many times. That's the IQOO phone, right? The IQ, right? Is that what it is?
Yes, yes.
Now, it
Mm-hmm.
seems like it's a great phone. How is its accessibility? Is it a good
So
accessible phone?
someone mentioned the I don't know if there are problems with the launcher. It's a sub brand of Vivo. If you know what, Vivo is another
Yeah.
Chinese brand, right? So it
Yes.
uses the same OS, and so it does have a lot of unlabeled buttons and stuff. So essentially, I don't use the default launcher, so I don't have to deal with it. I use Nova. But even with the control center, there are some accessibility issues. Like it's not really. I mean, now that I'm used to it, I don't really mind it much. But I would not recommend if you were like a beginner. At least for now, I would not recommend.
Yeah, that makes
In
sense.
like yeah.
Thank you.
And Sally, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's great to be here. And just I want to say thank you guys a lot for making this podcast alive. I'm here nonstop since 116th episode as part of the partnership. By the way, it's Salih Kunduz from Turkey, co-founder of accessibleandroid.com. And I should say I'm using S23 as my main phone. I really like that phone, by the way. It's really compact and fast enough. And coming back to the topic, it's great to be here and celebrating the 30th anniversary. I'm sure it's going to go way long to 5, 6, and 7, even more. So I'm hoping for that.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
And last but not least, it's the evil chocolate cookie. How are you?
I'm all right. Just fighting with in-room temperature, but yeah. I'm in Kentucky in the U.S. and as of about a month ago, actually been a little bit over. I am coming to you from a Pixel 7 Pro early birthday present. Shiny new toy
Nice.
that I just picked up and was just instantly like, okay, yeah, I can live with this. I'm going to be using this for the rest of forever.
Evil chocolate girl. So Kentucky kind of blew me away. So we were traveling around the country, and we got to some place in Kentucky. I wanted to go see the APH, the Braille place in Louisville, and we stopped somewhere to eat at a KFC. And guess what? It's an all-you-can-eat. And here I hate chicken. Uh, and it just blew me away that they had an all-you-can-eat. I never heard of that for KFC. So it was quite an experience for me. I mean, the first time I went to Kentucky was back in, I think it was in 1998, or was it in 2000? I think it was 2000 to Lexington for a conference called the National Church Conference of the Blind. That was the first time. And then in 2014, when we traveled overland, with my family and all of that, it was such a blast. We saw a lot of places in Kentucky, went to the Creation Museum and all of that. It's just I love it. So welcome to our party.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend living here though, not if you want a job.
Why is that? I like Kentucky.
Because if you live here, at least in this part, and society tells them there's anything wrong with you, you are either blown off or totally ignored by every employer ever.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, but it's very interesting. I never forget an all you can eat KFC. And here I don't like chicken. It's kind of odd.
Sorry about that. My wife wanted to interject its 2 cents into the matter.
Well, good. Good.
We
Keep
used
them
to have
steps.
all you can eat KFC around here, and then I don't know, they went away. So
Ah,
they were kind of tied in with Taco Bell, and I always thought, why don't they have all you can eat tacos on there too? That'd be
Maybe
great.
people were eating
Right?
too much.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
food is good. Food is good. You have it. My doctrine is if you have it, eat it. You don't have it, then you go hungry. That's all.
Oh, we've been around all the mics. I've just had a quick look. No one else appears to have joined. Warren, where shall we take it next, do you think?
Well, I think the first thing I want to start by saying is that this podcast was something that we just kind of thought of it on a whim, if you will, with the breakage of uh, eyes free and all of that. Everything is simply splintered and all of that. So here we are, and Austin and I got it talking, and then we decided, hey, let's just go ahead and start. And by the way, I think it was December the 18th. That was our first episode. And so this almost coincides with that. And that was going back to 2020. Was it 2020, Austin? Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, it was 2020.
Yeah. And so we had a choice of either do the celebration next week, which is going to be the 23rd, or do it today. And for us, the 16th is closer to the 18th. So here we are. And we want to thank you guys for joining us. And most especially those of you that couldn't join us but are listening or listening to this later on. This podcast or this venture is all about you. Without you, none of this would have happened. And so we're so excited that you guys have made this possible. 3 years later, it's a monumental thing and it's a milestone, huge, huge milestone for us. And so we're excited about it. So we were talking about phones and all of that. I think that in general, though, let's talk about things that you like on Android. How about we start with things that we like on Android and things that we don't like? So in other words, the pros and the cons as you see them, and maybe some of the workarounds if you could find some workarounds. I know some people moving from other platforms to Android. Sometimes the problem is that some of the apps that you're using or you are using from another platform, you're not finding them here, or when you find them, they're not all that accessible. How about we talk about it, go around the room and talk about that, some of the things we like about Android and some of the problems that we don't like about Android. I guess I'll start then since I have the floor. Now, for me, though, I've been on Android for a long time, and so it's kind of like become what I know because I was on Apple prior to joining Android, going back to 2010 or 2011, actually, to be exact, with a Froyo device. But then, so I've kind of grown used to having Android. So I don't know anything about iOS, which I call Fruitvale. So for me, I have no complaints. I mean, the only complaint that I have, or maybe one of the few complaints or one or two complaints that I have, is the one thing that we're still waiting for, and that's that, discriminate ability to select something and copy. I know we're almost there, but it's not quite as good as we would like it to be. And that's probably one of the biggest gripes that I have about Android. But outside of that, the things that I like about Android, I just like that openness and how I can do everything that I want. I think it's you, Evil Chocolate Girl, you are talking about installing the acapella TTS on your watch and all of that. And so that goes to prove the openness of Android. And it's one of the reasons I love where I'm at. So that will be it from me regarding my Android, the things I like about Android, and a thing or two that I may not like.
Well, you mentioned it just now, Warren, and we came to you last, so why don't we come to you next this time? Evil Chocolate Cookie is well, relatively new to Android, I guess, at least with that phone. Were you iOS before, and what do you like or not like?
Yeah, I was on iOS for about 12 years, and then I was given a Galaxy that I actually still have over here. It was just lying around, and then I start playing with it, and things are just so much easier, and they make so much more sense for me to do, and I'm just like, "Oh my god." Because for those of you who don't know, let's take ringtones, because I know we all like to personalize those. If you want to get a ringtone to your phone from Apple, you got two options. Fight with GarageBand and hope you drop the stupid MP3 file in the right spot in the project, or fight with iTunes and hope it feels like letting you drag and drop into the right part of the window. Not fun. Not in either direction. So when I found out getting this phone, my mother's just like, "Oh, just grab an MP3 and throw it in the folder." And I'm like, "Excuse me, what? That's all I have to do?" I I like the freedom that I'm seeing. I can, if I don't like something, there's a 90% chance I can change it. Really, the only problems I've had is, the additional purchases I'm going to have to make to get some of my software back, which it's mildly frustrating considering I've already spent like triple on one app because I kept losing it on the other side of the fence, and now I'm going to have to pay for it again. But that, and I had one app that was holding me back from switching completely, and the developers blew me off in terms of fixing the accessibility, so I just picked my podcast up and moved it.
Talking about apps that we have on previous platforms or whatever that we're migrating to, I think that a good thing would be if these things use the same email. For example, I know I got probably 2 or 3 apps. I have a Fruitvale device, an iOS device, for those of you in Rio Linda. I have, a Fruitvale device, but there are a couple or 3 apps that I use the same login, my email address, and I could, access both on Android and um, iOS. So it would be nice if that could be the case, or if they say, hey, use your Google account to sign in, then one should be able to access all of those things, whether you're on whatever platform that you have chosen.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me just pause that there for a minute because I want to invite Amir to introduce himself. Amir, you were on fairly recently, I know, as Android Journey, but do you want to remind people again where you're from and what phone you're rocking?
Hello, everybody. This is Amir joining you from Tehran, Iran. I am currently using the Samsung S23 Ultra as my only daily driver. I had the A54 for a couple of weeks, but then managed to upgrade to the S23 Ultra and have a lot of fun using the phone. And coming from the iOS side after so many years, I couldn't imagine having such a fantastic time on this side of the pond.
Right. And so one of you wanted to tell us some good news, I think, either Amir or Sally. Who wants to do that?
Yeah, let it be Amir, because I want him to say that.
Okay, I'm not sure if it is good news or maybe bad news for Salah and Kareen, but we are supposed, through Salah's kind offer, to cooperate as a team on accessible Android in terms of content and whatever stuff I can be of assistance. So we talked about it a couple of hours ago. I'm sorry, and it was finalized in a matter of, I don't know, 10 or so minutes. So let's see what comes of it in the near future.
Nice. Good to see that team expanding as well. So going back then to the apps discussion and the problem, yeah, I've noticed the way I would characterize it, if an app lets you log in with the same details across platform, it's almost it's a service-led thing, and the app's kind of secondary. It's a means to access the service, isn't it? Whereas if the app is kind of the main thing, that's where it tends to be separate. It is always worth, I think, dropping the developer a little line to see if he wants to kind of do you any deal. He might not, but when I left iOS in 2020, I'd been on it similar length of time, about 10 years. I didn't really want to buy all my apps again. So I wrote to my app developers and went, or the app developers and went, I bought your app. Do you want to give me a coupon so I can get it for free? And they didn't all do it, but one or two did. So I didn't have to shell out quite the same amount of money again.
So basically, when I basically talked to a few developers about that, about getting a discount or something on another device, usually their answer was like, but those are two different platforms, two different infrastructures, and we're managing it differently. There are different developers for it. So yeah, you have to pay twice.
Yeah, and I didn't get it from all of them, like I say, but I got it probably 2, 3 out of 5. So I was happy with the return. I thought there's no harm in asking. So save myself a couple of bucks. Ava, I know you said you might have to go early. If you're still there, what do you like about Android, or what don't you like so much?
What I love about Android that you can choose between different screen readers now, like this commentary or talkback, but you don't have to stick to just one. And I love the gestures of talkback, that you can only use one finger instead of, as I was told, up to 3 fingers on iOS, which I have never used. And that's what I enjoy, because I never press all my fingers with the same intensity, and I don't realize it. And if I had to memorize all the gestures, 2 times 3 fingers, 3 times 2 fingers, oh my gosh. So 1 finger is really something for me. I really, really like it. What I don't like is that you have to go into the developer options in order to be able to change TalkBack's volume when you are using Bluetooth earbuds. But we've had that on a mailing list, and again, I was very grateful for this list that someone gave me the tip with those developer options. Would never have thought of those.
Right, yeah, and it's hard to get into if you don't know as well. They don't want you stumbling in there accidentally. Well, when you were chuckling, you love the one finger gestures, don't you? You always did.
Well, I'm a one finger kind of guy. I do most of my things, except for an occasional thing when I need to use 2 fingers for, you know, pausing something I'm reading, or playing back, or pausing a playback, or else I mainly use one finger. I mean, now and then, of course, I would use the multi-finger thing when I assign it to something in particular. Let's say I want to copy something or whatever. But other than that, I am not one of those that uses the multi-finger all the time.
So I'm not the only one. Great to
No,
hear.
you are not the only one, and trust me, a lot of us just want to use the one finger. But the good news is that we have that possibility, or it's there for people who would like to use many fingers. It's there for you. If that's what rocks your boat, then you've got it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love the one finger gestures. I love being able to use my phone in one hand when I need to, especially when I was the father of a newborn, and when you're holding that baby and it's finally fell asleep and you only have one hand free to do stuff, that's when all those angle gestures and everything come in handy. You can do a lot with your phone, whereas if you had an iPhone, you have to you can't do really much of anything without holding the phone in one hand and tapping it with the opposite hand.
Yeah, and how about you then, John, and your likes and dislikes about Android?
So that's one of the main things, is the one-handed use you can get out of it. And the things that you can't do, like, for example, copy, cut, paste, all that, I usually have assigned, and they are by default assigned to multi-finger gestures. But you also have talkback voice commands, which I don't think VoiceOver has an equivalent. So a lot of things you can do using voice commands with just one gesture. Then you can say copy, cut, paste, select all. You can even label buttons with voice commands. You can set your granularity with voice commands. You can really do a lot with it. So I can really do everything one-handed if I really wanted to, or in a situation where I need to. And also, just, and this isn't going to come as a surprise to anybody, but I love how many devices there are. Android, you could get phones in all shapes, sizes, brands, different interfaces. Like there's a lot of new stuff to play around with. So that's also what I love about Android.
Any dislikes?
Oh, yeah. it can break out of nowhere, like especially the web views. I don't know, stuff can just stop working, and then you have to figure out, okay, what app was it? Gboard? Was it web views? Was it Chrome? What updated that broke whatever was working? And that's a frustration for me. I also I'll make the point, and people make this point when they come from iOS. It's not a big deal once you get used to it, but it's not as responsive as VoiceOver. The gestures I don't think are as reliable. Like I could tap with 4 fingers and it thinks or swipe with 4 fingers and only thinks I swipe with 3 fingers. That sort of thing. I find, and it probably has something to do with the fact that Apple has control over the hardware, or more control over the hardware, I should say. And it feels like VoiceOver works better. Like it's more reliable. Like every time I double tap, I know the double tap is going to work. It doesn't always work on Android. I mean, it's not like always not working, but every once in a while, something I do doesn't work, and I'm like, I know I did that gesture right. It didn't work. So I guess that's my other gripe.
Yeah, for me, I like the openness, like a couple of others have said, and the fact that you really can change anything. One fairly geeky thing that you can spoof location services, because using a VPN doesn't always work these days. Virtual private network, if you want to appear to be somewhere else and it goes off the phone's location services. In Android, you can change those. You can't very easily in iOS, certainly not without jailbreaking. The one thing I don't really like is the fragmentation of updates. I think that is disappointing. The fact that it's left so much to manufacturers and to networks and certain carriers in certain instances to roll stuff out. But no, it's definitely my preferred one. How about you, Linda? You work in the industry, don't you?
I'm an adaptive technology instructor, so I work for a company called Tech Vision. And the lady in charge of that, we mainly work with K-12 students on the computer and on Braille displays. And I have been asked a time or two to help a person connect with their iPhone Fruitvale with their Braille display, because they generally use the Focus. And I have a Fruitvale for that reason, so I can do testing and working with my students. And there's a couple things that I do on there, but not as much now that seeing AI and all that is on the Android. Thankful. I'm with the evil on the ringtones and sounds. I know it sounds silly, but it's like the most awesome thing ever. I can have a sound, a ringtone, for anything I want. And I can make my own, and I can, easily just make the MP3 and drop it on there. It's awesome. I am a multi-finger gesture person, so I don't think it really matters but I also figured out how to do that with both phones, generally with one hand. I have 2 kids. They're not kids anymore, but back when they were. And I'm trying to think here, what don't I like? I had it in my head a second ago. I do like the fact that we can have the different launchers, the dialers, the message, keyboards and so on. but yeah, the breaking things at times, with you on that one, and this thing with the Pixel and the 14 and that little status bar with the battery and all that being in one place. What's up with that? And I noticed that in Chrome, in-page links don't read as in-page, seem to read as in-page links. They just read as links. And things don't seem to always be grouped. So you have a lot of separation. I think the grouping would be good in a lot of situations. So I think that's it.
Yeah, the gestures on Android as well. What I quite like about them is it's possible to be told a native gesture and know how to implement it with TalkBack just by adding one finger. I've always liked that, so you can get sighted help. Whereas there's no way to use Apple's native gestures with VoiceOver. Really, it doesn't work in quite the same way. They're all VoiceOver gestures, so you kind of need someone who knows VoiceOver. Obviously, TalkBack now has other gestures that aren't native ones, but at least you've got the basics down. Just add a finger to the core. I think that's quite helpful too. Why don't we go to a couple of Amirs next? We'll go to Kashmir Amir first. What do you really like or not like, Amir?
Well, with Android, I like the choice I have. The choice of browsers, I don't know, music players, email clients, and someone mentioned screen readers. These are all awesome points, and I like the choice of TTS engines. I do have lots of them, and switch back and forth. That is really nice. But when it comes to complaints, I have a couple of gripes, to be honest. And, life is full of gripes of that sort. For example, when I'm typing with Gboard or the Samsung keyboard, doesn't matter. Sometimes the character my finger is on cannot be typed. I don't know why. I hear the character. When I lift my finger, it is not typed. But I don't know. Sometimes, for example, Google Assistant stops functioning and I should restart the phone in really rare circumstances, really rare. But these gripes aside, I like the experience.
Excellent. Yeah, the only reason, the only place I've seen that Gboard thing, it hasn't happened to me on characters. Luckily, it's only been on, some of the buttons you have to tell it to enter when you lift a type. Like the symbols button or enter or something. And luckily, I've never had that little quirk happen to me.
I've seen it on password and pins.
Yeah.
When I'm supposed to type the pin or the password, I do hear the character or the number, but when I lift the finger, it's not there. I have to double tap or just
doesn't enter.
Touch, and hold again.
One frustration I've had with Gboard is that when I have mine set to lift to type, right? But when I want to delete like everything in the field, I'll find the delete key and I'll hold my thumb there, right? And I swear I'm not moving it. And it's like on the delete key, and then when it starts to long press it, instead of like deleting everything, it either puts a whole bunch of L's in or starts hitting enter over and over. And I'm like, I did not move my finger. It's been on the delete key the whole time. So I don't know what's going on with that, but that's one frustration I've been having with it lately.
And it could be that maybe your fingers touching something. I've seen those instances, but like Amir from Kashmir was saying earlier, sometimes I notice some apps, even though I have set my default to be the lift to type or whatever. And prime example is the Hushed phone app, for example. I have to double tap on a number in order for it to be inputted. So this sometimes depends on the app in question, even though one has set their whatever preference. One would think that it would just automatically follow that. I'm kind of beginning to wonder if the app in question is bypassing what I have, or they have their own keyboard or whatever. That's the only thing I can think of.
And folks, I do have one more little gripe, and maybe you can help me with that. And in some apps, when I use the two-finger gesture to scroll up or down, it scrolls, but it scrolls. I mean, it over scrolls. For example, in the contacts area, when I scroll, it goes from A to M with just one act of scrolling, and it is too much. With VoiceOver on iOS, it was really controlled. I don't know what to do with this one. Guess I
Yeah,
have
so
to live with it.
the way it works on Android is, and whether you like this or not, it's a preference thing. On VoiceOver, every time you do the gesture, it scrolls exactly one page. Whereas on
Exactly.
Android, it's got a momentum to it. So depending on how hard you swipe, is how hard it's going to go. So when you stop doing that gesture, it's going to continue to scroll depending on how fast you did the gesture. So if you don't want it to keep going after you've done the swipe, just move your fingers and stop them and keep them on the screen. And then it
I
won't
swipe
continue to
left
scroll when you let
immediately
go.
to stop it.
Well, that won't stop it. The only way
No,
you can
I
stop
think
it is by holding
here's
your
what
fingers
John
on the
is
screen.
saying. For example, let's say you are in contacts, and that's a vertical scroll, for example. And so you put those two fingers, but you need to slowly, move them upwards. You don't want to just like you're flicking something away. If you do that, then you are moving in bunch like the Fruitvale does. But
Yeah.
frankly, I like the way it works on Android because I can even scroll only by 2 items at a time if that's what I want. So, like John says, it all depends on the intensity of that scrolling or that flicking, like our folks on
And
Fruitvale
a
likes to
lot of
say.
times, what I
Yeah.
do is I'll flick it, and then when I let go, I'll put my finger on the screen and just hold it there, and then I can hear, like, as it's going by, I can hear, like, the beginning of everything that my finger is touching as it's scrolling. So that kinda gives you an idea of how fast the screen is scrolling.
And it creates another problem with heading navigation. For example, if I have many contacts under M, and when I want to move to the N heading, and when I set the rotor equivalent to the heading option and then move down, it says there is no heading. I have to do it several times to reach N because it cannot find the N heading with just one scroll up or down
Yeah, that's a good
action.
point. That is an issue with TalkBack. Headings work fine on web pages, but in actual apps, if the next heading is not on the screen, it will just scroll one page and say no next
That's it.
heading, and then you'll just keep having to keep scrolling until it can actually get a heading on the screen. So yeah, you're right. That is sort of a downside to
Yeah.
headings navigation.
And if that happens sometimes, because I notice that happening sometimes, even on web pages, for example, I mean, it works reliably on the web page, but now and then something odd like that happens. And so what I noticed for me is that if that happens, though, try to touch the screen again and then try to invoke that, command again and see if it works. But yeah, it's unreliability right there is one of the things that John had mentioned earlier on. Sometimes things are not as reliable as they ought to be, and that happens to be one of those.
And how about other Amir? Amir in Kashmir, what do you like or not like?
Yeah, you got me confused, but so there's a lot to like about Android, especially for a tech nerd, which I am. Like, there's so much stuff like you can do. For example, recently I discovered a utility. It's called Android Screen Mirror Utility, I believe. It's an open source software where you can, like, how there's this your phone app link thing where you link your phone with your Windows device. It's basically the same thing. However, it's totally local. It does not require you to use your Microsoft account, and it's much faster. Like, the latency is much better, and you can basically copy paste stuff from your phone to your PC. You can do the screen mirroring, and even, like, aside from that, there is a lot of stuff that you can side load, for example, which maybe like questionable, I'm not going to get into that, but like there's a lot of stuff you can do. And especially, if you're a technology geek, I think you don't have enough customization on iOS. Like, you can't do a lot there. And as far as dislikes are concerned, I was gonna say, like, I was going to list a long list of issues that I have with Android, but thankfully John explained everything much better than I could ever have. Like, I have all the problems that John described, and it has to do with mostly with talkback. For example, the taps not registering. Sometimes the gestures don't work, and it's mostly talkback problems, I think, because I do use CSR and I've never experienced anything like that. So it's just talkback being talkback, for example. And if you're a Samsung talkback user, you'll notice that the responsiveness is actually much worse than the Google version for whatever reason. And then there's also, like, the one thing I really dislike on Android is the typing experience. I do not like how there's no direct touch equivalent on Android. Like, there are workarounds. For example, on CSR, you can disable browse by touch and then type. But that also broke in, I think, the developer. I don't know if it was Google or the CSR dev. One of them broke that. Now the characters are not announced anymore. But basically, I wish there was a better way to type on Android. And I had no good luck with Braille keyboards either. Like, the soft Braille keyboard didn't work for me at all, and the ABK works, but it has this really annoying problem where it loses the calibration. Like, if you type too fast, it loses the calibration. Then you have to recalibrate the keyboard and start over, and it's really annoying. And yeah, I mean, there are problems with it, but I think there are workarounds, and it's not unbearable. That's what I mean to say. It's like you can get by. It's not like a deal breaker for the most part.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of side loading too, and obviously you've got to be careful as you do these things, understanding the risks. But any number of good reasons to do it. Maybe an app's not available in your jurisdiction. Maybe an app updated itself when you weren't looking, and it's not accessible anymore. At least if you've got an APK, you can roll back as long as the app doesn't insist you're on the latest version. Any number of reasons to do it. If you've got something like a Braille Sense 6 or a Touch Plus, maybe you need an older version of the app to work. So APKs, in my view, good things. I am going to have to shoot off, folks, now, unfortunately, but I'm going to leave you in Warren's and the other co-hosts' capable hands to take you around the room. But hope the rest of it's a really good celebration.
This is my likes and dislikes about Android. First of all, I want to say that Ed was talking about side loading, and now side loading is also come under Google Play protection scan. So the risk has reduced, but you need to be very careful on what permissions you give the app when you're side loading it. So these are what I like on Android. There are lots of customizations. If you are a technical person, you can do a lot of changes, more changes than what is actually shown on the screen. You can change a lot of things in the developer options of Android. To go there, you need to hit on the about phone, the build number of Android 7 times. But if you are not technical, I think you should not go in there, because a lot of settings are really unknown and might do some damage to your Android installed copy. You need to either reflash or format your phone. And my likes are that it's customizable. You get many phones, different prices, different shapes, sizes. You want RGB, you can get phones with that. But even that causes some disadvantages. One of them is fragmentation. Like, some phones don't get updated. Some new phones which are capable of running new versions of Android don't get updated. And Android starts crashing on some phones because it is made primarily for pixels, and then the OEMs customize them for their brands, which is not done properly. Maybe then it starts crashing. And accessibility problems are there on some phones, like the IQ phones and the Oppo brands. And also, there are no games on Android. That is my another complaint. Not much of games than the iOS. I was never a iOS member. I used an iPad that my brother had, and I don't know which generation it was, and liked it kind of, but not as much as I liked Android. My brother, who had an iPhone, he sold his iPhone and upgraded to the S23 Ultra. So that is, we both are the Android guys in the house.
Sorry, but I think there are a lot of games on Android, actually.
Not as much though. I don't think. Like for example, there are some indie, not indie developers, but like some blind developers who exclusively develop for iOS, and
I've only
um,
found a few examples, but most of the games are on the Android. Most of the
Yeah,
accessible
there are a
games
lot
I
of games.
know.
Not, I don't know if any accessible games. Then maybe we need to have more listeners contributing demos for the podcast in games section, because we are getting very hardly next to nothing demos on game section at least.
And also a lot of games that weren't made specifically for blind. I just found out that there's a higher probability you'll find an accessible mainstream game on Android than you'll find on iOS. That's what I observed from just going into like Play Store and App Store and downloading some random games and stuff.
yeah, and it's because TalkBack has a like say what you will about TalkBack, but its icon detection feature is really good. I was really impressed. And so, like, if TalkBack encounters some unlabeled stuff, it will describe it and it's accurate. And it doesn't take too much time, right? It's instant. Like, there's no delay. So, yeah, that does make it more accessible. A lot of stuff that
So I'm not a gamer. I've always said there was just only this one game that I'd ever played, and I think it was the archery game. What was it called? Something archery, audio archery, or something
Audio
like that.
audio archery, that was my favorite. Yeah.
Oh my
And
god, I love that game.
I
If
love
I
it.
if I
I
can
thought I
get
was
the
crazy.
APK, if I can get the APK, I'll still play it even now.
I still have the
I
APK. I
I
haven't
have
tried
it.
it. I have it too,
I don't
but
have
I
it on the
You
love
mean the
phone, but I
one
is
have
it
it.
is it
from
compatible?
Elworms?
I have not played this game actually. The only archery game I played was in Audio Game Hub. They had the like they have a bunch of games and one of them is archery. I think it's called what something to do with archery for sure.
Yeah, and so I really like that game, most especially when I hit that bullseye. I'm like, yeah,
You're
bingo,
right.
Yeah, that was a what was a nice tune though.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to know that you guys have, likes and dislikes of the system. Of course, it's got to be like that, regardless of what system one is on. Those things are bound to be there. And it's nice that we get to talk about these things because if someone is coming in, nothing is going to be taking them by surprise. So, for example, if you're coming from another side, you're coming from Fruitvale, iOS, Apple, whatever you want to call it, and so you know that these are some of the things. And like we talked about earlier, the fragmentation that Austin mentioned is part of it. And for me, though, that fragmentation, as I've always said, is the strength of Android because I really like that fragmentation because I think it was John talking about the fact that it's nice to be able to get a different phone because, for example, if I'm a fan of Sony and maybe I've kind of grown tired of Sony, I would like to try something else when I get something from Samsung or from iQOO or from OnePlus. I mean, the list is just endless. And so that's one of the good things about Android. You're not bound to one thing. If you don't like it, you try something else. And for me, that's a big win-win situation right there.
Yeah, but the fragmentation that I was talking about was the like some phones get updated to new versions of Android, some do not, and some carriers do not roll the update.
Yeah, well,
So
but that is
that
still
type of
part of,
fragmentation.
yeah, that is still part of the fragmentation because let's say if you have a Sony phone and maybe Sony takes its time to update whatever, so it's still the same thing. So you got to choose which one. If you're more into software updates, then you get the one that gets the faster updates. If you are more into, hey, I want hardware quality over whatever, then you go along with the one that only updates it occasionally, but you know for sure that you have such a great quality in hardware. So I think it's a win-win situation for everyone because you have the playing field, you have everything that you need on there, and you choose as it benefits you. So frankly, that
In
fragmentation, I wouldn't want it any other way than the fragmented way of doing things.
in my opinion, if I had to put it short, I would say the fragmentation is good in general for the Android ecosystem, but not so good for accessibility because they're different brands and they if you're new, for example, and you don't have anyone to guide you, you can really buy a phone that has not good accessibility, and then you might just, you might make your opinion based on what product you have, and then you might have a negative perception about the Android accessibility.
And that's very true. And for example, nice that you brought that up because some Chinese phones don't even have TalkBack on it. I've had, I think it was a Doogee
Yes,
or one, I don't
actually,
remember,
my first
Verni.
ever phone. This was back in 2017. It was Lava. I think the brand. It's an Indian brand, and they did not have accessibility features built in. I had to. Man, those were some good days. That thing was running Android 4.4 KitKat, but but yeah, that thing had 512 MB of RAM.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was a nightmare to use TalkBack on that thing, but yeah, that did not have built-in TalkBack.
Yeah, and you find those now and then, most especially, like I said, if it's a Chinese phone, and the same thing goes for the watches. I think it was a couple years or maybe a year and a half ago that I bought one Chinese watch called the Cuspet, Kospet. And, I try to put my finger down and, it just, I think it will say, keep holding your finger or something. I don't remember even if it said it, maybe it did not, but one of those, I think it was my second one, the Cuspet. But then there was no screen reader. You will hear that TTS, prompting, but since there was no talkback in there, nothing follows thereafter. So it's one of those things. And you made a great point in there that if someone is coming in for the first time and is not familiar with the fact that some of these things do not have the screen reader built in, then it will be a problem. And then that will be their viewpoint on Android. And that's one of the things we have that has given Android a black eye. And hence the reason why the Blind Android Users podcast exists to correct those such misgivings.
Yeah, that's true. And to give you some context, when I started using Android, I came from Symbian. I'm sure you have used Symbian phones. And the talkback was still very rudimentary. Like, remember those floating menus where you had to, it was like lift to type kind of. You had to do the global menu gesture, and then you had to navigate your finger around the screen and then lift to activate the menu options.
Yeah, so you're talking about the circular. We used to have, one that, like a clock face, and you move your finger around the clock. That
Yep.
was how it was. I think that the first time we had an option, I think was in Lollipop, was when you could have that circular one, or you could have
Yeah, you could
them in a
disable that.
list view.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I I used that thing was running Android 4.4, and then I jumped straight to Android 9 back in was it
Oh,
2020?
that's a big move. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a big move.
Believe it or not, I actually miss those Angular menus. It
You
was
missed
just
that.
yeah, it was so quick to get to what you wanted. Like once you had it memorized and you knew exactly where to go to get to the
Yeah,
selection you wanted, it's much quicker than swiping through a menu or even exploring by touch. Once you get it down, I can see how it wasn't. And we have to remember back then phones were a lot smaller, and
that's true. That's true.
Android and TalkBack was designed to be used with one finger because a lot of devices back then did not even have multi-finger support, believe it or not.
Yeah,
So that's
that
why
Lava
TalkBack.
device I've mentioned, that
Yeah,
thing
that's
was size of my. I mean, in fact, my hand. I think my hand is bigger than that device. That thing was just like tiny.
yeah. So back then it was, by design there were all these angle gestures because a lot of two fingers and especially three finger gestures were not even possible on some devices, and the phones were a lot smaller, so that's why that circular menu, it was easy. You could reach any part of the screen with your thumb. You just put it in the center and slide it to what you want and select it. It was really quick. But if you tried to use that on these giant phones today, it would be a completely different experience.
That really makes sense, John, because yeah, the clock face, I know I'm pointing it at me, for example. I know that the 12 o'clock is right up there and directly below it is my 6. So yeah, it makes sense. You could easily navigate to things really quick by simply knowing the angle that they add. And so I can see that. And I know some people, my friend Anna still likes that. Unfortunately, we don't have that, but that used to be her preferred method of navigating the talkback menu. So I see why someone would like that. But yeah, it's unfortunate we don't have it as an option for those that would prefer using that.
I have a question. How? So you mentioned.
You're trying to hide from Sally. Maybe that's what it
No,
is.
no. I want to find you though. How can I find you?
He doesn't want you sending him personal messages
Yeah.
on Telegram.
No, actually, I use the same. I mean, no, this it's just Amir. It's a simple
Yeah,
AAM.
you're just not active on there. That's what it
I mean,
is.
I read everything. Like I read all the
Yeah,
messages. I just never
exactly.
participate.
We have lots of members that are not active, but they're there, and yet in the same breath, in the background, they're reading everything that's being posted on there.
I'm going to start from the very beginning for me. I had an LG phone back in 2010, and it drove me absolutely crazy. But I looked at it this way: if I could make phone calls, get text messaging, that was good enough. And so from there, I moved to the Note. I've had the Note 3, Note 4, Note 6, and then Note 9 was the latest version of the Android phone. What I like about uh, the Note 9 and the reason why I kept it so long is that there was the headphone jack in there, and I could set it up because I do multiple inputs of different devices and radio equipment to one uh, control panel, and so I could track things that way. And no, of course, I couldn't. I would have to pick up the phone, but I could hear everything that came in through the control panel for both radios and also the phone. Well, that worked really good for me. Uh, I used that Note 9 until about 2 weeks ago, when I finally decided to upgrade to the S23 Ultra. And I'm still getting used to it. But what I like about Android is uh, the ability to customize it so it fits you, and it will work, with the way that you would access or uh, you know, use it in a day. It's a daily driver for me. Also, myself, knowing that I'll be interacting with uh, visually, with sighted people, uh, I keep in mind that not all of them use Androids, but the majority of them use the iOS products. So I keep that in mind and uh, find ways of mirroring my screen that I would use, so that they can see what's happening. And with me, when I first got the Ultra, the 23 Ultra, I follow the same process that I do with radio equipment. Everything has to be operational in the field. Um, that would mean if I have to program on the fly, I have to be able to control the phone if there's a problem. And I've found some problems, um, especially with the Samsung keyboard. Uh, and I found that if the screen if you just angle the screen a little bit, then the character that you want to, or number that you want to um, invoke, that changes by just slightly movement of the screen. And so I find that the Google keyboard works, Gboard works better for me. And the scrolling, I'm kind of like you. I like the one finger, but I also use the two finger and three finger if I have to. But I love the operating system. It's a great operating system. I do use an iPad, keeping in mind the sighted folks that I work with, and I use an iPad, and uh, it's not as customizable as the Android, and so uh, and it's a lot of it is also used in the field. Uh, I'm highly mobile. I'm in charge of a unit that when we get activated and deployed, we're in the field. So everything has to be portable enough to travel. That's why I don't use a computer in the field. Everything goes either over to the iPad, or we just use phones to send the information between my position and the next uh, team members that I'm with. So uh, that's that's about it. I'm still learning the S23 Ultra, and thanks to um, John Dyer, and yourself, Warren, uh, I've been able to get around on it. I've made it crash a couple times, but
That's
but
okay. We all do.
but but what I and a lot of my team members will always say, "Oh, here he goes with the reset," and that's where you
That's
can
me.
always,
That's
yeah,
me.
that's where you can always find, you know, what your strengths are, and it helps you to develop on the fly programming if you have to do it. And so I applied the same principles that I use for radio to the phone, and it's worked out pretty good so far. I haven't gotten to a place where I couldn't do anything without any sighted help. So that's a great thing about Android. If there is a problem, and uh, you can at least invoke talkback, so it will work. So uh, that's my story.
That's a great story indeed, Mike, and we're grateful that you're with us, and most especially thanks to John. John is a big Samsung guy. He loves his Samsung phones, and so um, John has brought us a lot of things concerning Samsung, and so I'm glad John is there. So when you need something about Samsung, talk to John.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
I,
I'm
I,
I'm happy
I've,
to be here.
Yeah.
yeah, John, I've gained a lot of um, when I first got the phone.
Mhm,
I really did look at I really did look at the issues, the podcast,
mhm.
and looked at follow that, and I thought, okay, I thought I had it all down until I did get the phone, and I thought, oh, okay, we need to start from square one.
Yeah, and you get a
But
good one. And it sounds to me like you're a kind of note guy. You like your notes, Galaxy notes for quite a while until they petered out.
yeah, and I have to say, Warren, you've been really have been an evangelist for Android, and I wanted to personally thank you, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, to thank you for all your work and um, throughout the years. I've been following you in particular since Ice Free days,
No, thank you
and
so much, man.
so I've learned a lot. I've learned to keep the phone and not having it sail across the room in frustration.
And I've been there.
Uh,
Funny though, both you and I started on LG. I always said I started on the Optimist, and I was frustrated with it. I almost threw it out the window. I ran back to the Fruitvale and then came back. And then my salvation came with the Razor Max from Motorola. And that was with gingerbread, and everything changes from there. And I never looked back ever since then. But to be honest, that Froyo device with LG Optimist was not a very good thing,
I
Yeah.
agree. As I was saying, as long as I can make a phone call and somehow get a text message, I was happy at the moment,
Yeah.
because I had all the other devices that I could use. But then they started updating, and so I've been, to be honest, I've been very fortunate in my journey, in that I had some very understanding sighted assistants,
That's
and
good.
they didn't understand what we were doing and how we were doing what we were doing, and also they used to say, we don't speak that language, and I
I
didn't
love it.
realize they couldn't understand the speed that I had it up to. So when I slowed it down, they began to say, "Oh, it is English." I said, yeah, it is. Sorry about that. So it taught me a lesson that if I'm gonna ask for help in any way, that I need to slow remember that they don't listen at the speed that we listen the audio to. So those things I've kept in mind. But thank you again for all your work, and thank you to John. John, you're great.
Thanks. You brought up the Eyes Free days, and I kind of want to share a funny story. At least I hope it's funny. So back in the day when I was on the Eyes Free list, um, I I well, I wasn't really involved in too many blind related communities, but at the time I was on that list, and I remember thinking like, who's this Warren Carr guy? He he is like whenever I see a message from him, I'm like, oh my gosh, here's Warren again. Like, here's the know-it-all guy, Mr. Android Evangelist. You know,
Oh my God.
I'm telling you this, Warren, to make a point because I thought I didn't like you at the time for whatever reason, and it just this is how things come across when like you only see things in text, right? So the eyes free group falls apart, right? Years later, I haven't joined the blind Android users mailing list or anything. And then I find the podcast. I'm listening to the podcast, and I'm like, Warren Carr, that sounds familiar. What's that? But it doesn't click, right? And I'm listening to the podcast. I'm like, I really like this podcast. I like these guys. They know a lot. They're good people. All this, and then one day it just clicks. I'm like, was that the Warren Carr? Like that can't be this Warren over here. It's just like it's such a it just goes to show like how judgy you can be, like even subconsciously, especially when it's only like in text form, you know, like when you're communicating with people only in text form, it just you can read it much differently than like hearing them speak, you know what I mean?
Well, you know, John, I agree with you. In
Warren is a jerk, isn't he? You agree with me?
no, no. I have to say that for myself, you know, we have emails. We're able to send text messages, emails, and things of that sort through the radio. In fact, we practice a lot of not doing voice or using a computer. In my group, it's essential that they're able to send messages through the radio, independent of a telecommunications infrastructure. The reason is that when it all goes down, that's all we have is the radio and your phone or your iPad, or not even if your computer has power still, you can use that. But we send it through the radio frequencies. Well, the one thing that I always say, keeping in mind, they are sensitive uh, information that you can't transmit. That would have to do with critical information, casualty count, or um, any medical information can't be sent via voice. It has to be through the text uh, type of format for communications. But I never did like that because I like the voice because you can hear their intent. And I think to me, that's more than anything else is the intent. Um, Whether the person is arrogant, think they know it all, or they're helpful. They want to
Or
be
just trying to be
helpful.
helpful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because, and just to be clear, Warren's a great guy. Me and him are great friends now. But it just goes to show, and I was the one at fault here, that you know you can assume a lot, you know, and not even realize what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
And you know, it's
Anyway,
funny that John mentions that. You guys remember the guy, Gleph from Voxygen, not Voxygen, was it Voxmate? There we go. Now, so when Gleph and I started talking, he was relating this story to me from the ISP that, you know, I was critical of his app. And he was walking around and having this Warren guy in his head. And he said, how am I going to talk to this guy? And we talked, and we became the best of friends. And he's like, here I was thinking that I didn't like you, you know. And I'm like, well, you know, it's okay, because probably maybe the way I wrote about the app and all of that, you know, didn't jive well with you.
That's funny.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Oh my
funny.
gosh, I love it. Beautiful story, John.
So when I started using Android in 2013, when I first got my Android device, And after a while, I joined the ice free list. I know you weren't. You were writing messages, and I thought, okay, this guy is so arrogant. Oh my god! I mean, you know, and then I kept on following the discussions, and I joined the Annotated mailing list. I was keep following. I hope one day I can meet this guy. I mean, he's not too bad, honestly.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And here I think that probably though, maybe I'm
Yeah.
too much of a fanboy. I think that's what
Yeah.
it is. And
Shameless,
I find a
shameless
reason to
fanboy.
defend every single
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
that's what people got pissed off about because I
Are
was
you still
finding a way
in touch with Gleb? And what happened to their app,
which one?
Voxmate?
Oh, Voxmate. Yeah, I just, you know, it's one of those things. I think that what happened to Voxmate, though, has to do with the the subscription models, and a lot of us, a lot of blind people, uh, don't, or live in places. A lot of blind Android users live in places that do not have the money to do subscriptions and all of that. So a lot of people would rather have a one-time payment kind of thing if that's what it comes down to. But most especially when it's a recurring subscription, then I
But
find that a
is
lot
it
of people are not.
discontinued?
I haven't tried it. This is interesting. I have to try it, but I haven't seen
Or people?
anything
We should ask
from
him.
them.
I mean, what's the story behind? I mean, it's been a while. They didn't do any updates, and it stayed in the beta stage. I was one of the beta testers, but I didn't hear
Yeah,
anything.
I was too.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm going to reach out to Glyph and
yeah.
what's her name?
That's
Uh,
yeah,
uh, Atya, right?
that's
Katya
yeah,
or
that's
Katie.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
call her Katie. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's right. You're right. So,
yeah.
yeah, I wonder what happened. So, but Voxmate, for those of you that do not know what Voxmate is, it's a very simplistic app. All it takes is like 4 swipes, either up, down, left, or right. And I think they had a very good idea,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's good for someone who's not adept in Android or whatever, but you can do everything just by 4 swipes, and it was very good. I just wish that they had
You know what?
continued with.
You know what it reminded me of is remember when I reviewed the Blind Shell and that had like a directional pad. A
Yes.
lot of
Yeah.
a lot of the apps that they had curated, like they had a Telegram on there, they had WhatsApp on there, different things. They had it the same way, you kind of used up and down to like go through a list, and
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
you would hit right to like select that thing. It was sort of a similar interface, I should say.
Yeah, what I liked about Worksmate was, I mean, there are a lot of modules you can use, like the phone dialer and news tracker, even the radio. It was a promising app, and I wish there will be a way back to on it, and we can still use it. So
Yeah.
Warren, definitely ask them about the
I'm
story.
going
And
to ask him,
yeah,
but I think that what happens though, it makes it very hard because you have to keep on it and uh, try to see if the developer would let you kind of do that. And I remember Gleb was talking about, I don't remember what app it was, maybe something from Google, maybe it was Maps. I don't remember what it was, but he was trying to see if they would let him do that. So I think the burden becomes such a burden, so to speak,
yeah,
because if the developer doesn't let you, then you don't have many apps that you have in there, and I think probably that probably led to the demise of it. But yeah, and another thing is that if they could like maybe venture into the TTS engine, probably that would be a better route. I don't know, but Voxmate was a very great app, and I wish they
absolutely.
had
I love
continued.
that app, and yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, being at 10 years of Android users, even from the very beginning days, what I like is just going to Play Store and exploring new apps, just trying them. And if I don't like it, I can just simply uninstall it. I think Warren, you also like being an app junkie.
I really do. That's my trademark.
Yeah, I really love it. And what I don't like is it's not related to Android itself, but the geo restrictions and things take a while to be available on other markets and other territories all over the world. So this is kind of a problem on Android, but I'm sure there will be a way through it.
There would be. But yeah, it's great that, you mentioned that Play Store because I like navigating the Play Store, finding new apps and things like that.
Absolutely. So when I'm getting bored, I just like go to Play Store and go down through the list and just discover a new app and just see if it is accessible or not. It's a new journey.
I have a little
Yeah.
question, if I may ask so. Is there a WhatsApp group of this blind Android users? Because I've only read about the Telegram. I don't have the Telegram app, and it would be just great, a WhatsApp group or something like that.
Yeah, the accessible Android has a WhatsApp group if you're interested.
How is it called? What?
Accessible Android.
Accessible Android, yeah. I look for this. Or do I need to be invited?
Here's what it is. So Accessible Android, is a sister to Blind Android users. So, but its focus is mainly like on written material because not everybody can listen to stuff. So if you like listening or rather reading on things or, wanting things in a written format instead of audio, absolutely Accessible Android is where you need to be because then you have that you can copy the stuff for reference or whatever and things like that.
It also has a WhatsApp group. I mean,
Yeah, it
how
has
can
a
I pass
WhatsApp.
you the link? If I paste on here, can you join through the link?
Yeah, I should be able. I think so.
Okay.
All good things must end. Thus, it's curtain drawing time, bringing us to the close of this week's episode. Coming up, though, we give you information on how to get hold of us.
To contact us, you can send an email to contactus@blindandroidusers.com. You can join our mailing list by sending an email to blind Android users plus subscribe at groups.io. You can join our Telegram, Facebook, Discord, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The links for everything will be at the bottom of the show notes and also in the video description of the YouTube channel. And also the links are in the websites panel of the YouTube channels.
Well, thank you, folks. That has been our celebration of the 3rd anniversary, and we thank everyone that was able to join us. Until we see you next week, from me, it's goodbye.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Blind Android Users Podcast. Until we see you next week, don't forget to leave us your comments and suggestions via our email contact or using any of our social media sites. Have a great week.